Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a chatty get ready with me. If you saw in my community tab at the beginning of this month, I told you that my father had passed away. I took the rest of the week off and then I jumped back into some preloaded content. So all the videos that you've seen up until now have been videos that I filmed before he died. This is one of the first videos where I'm back to a bit of a filming routine schedule, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my dad and some of the things that his life and his values taught me and my siblings. I'm going to be doing an eyeshadow look, of course, and a few other things, but keep it pretty basic and just chat about my dad. I'm just going to put some lip oil from ColourPop on. This is the shade Paper Pansy, I think. Or is it Cosmic Click? Paper Pansy. And I really like the lip oil formula. It's very, very nice. So for today's look, I want to play with the Verona Love and Death palette from Nomad. I would like to use, I think, exclusively this side, and then I'm not sure if this is bright or light enough to be an inner corner highlight for me, but if it's not, I'll just pull a white from my Mimosa palette from BH Cosmetics. I'm not going to talk too much about the makeup. Everything I'm using is linked down below in the description box. I really just want to talk about my dad. Dad's favorite color was blue, so I'm going to be using the bluish purple shimmer in this palette. It's called Juliet. Aside from that, I think I'm not sure if I'll build up the crease with grays or purples, but again, not talking too much about the makeup. I am not entirely sure where to start with this video, but it felt wrong to just jump back into filming without even acknowledging or addressing what was obviously the elephant in the room. Now, I understand that this is YouTube. You guys don't need to know my personal life in details, and I could have gone without even mentioning anything at all, just carry on as though nothing had happened. But it felt wrong to not put my life, or at least this sort of thing, on hold for a little while in the wake of my father's passing. Because I decided to share that with you, I felt that it at least warranted a video giving some context, because people tend to have questions, but they might not feel comfortable asking them, and my father's life is a tale that's worth telling. Now, I am going to be very careful in this video because he and my mom were extremely private. They don't like a lot of information to be shared. What I'm really going to focus on in this video is some things that I learned from him, some things that he passed on, a bit of his legacy to his children and grandchildren and those who are left behind. I apologize if I'm a bit scatterbrained, and now let's get into this eye look so this video doesn't take forever. I'm taking the lighter of the two purple mattes, and I think I'll fill my crease. My father was an extremely intelligent man, very, very smart. The Lord gave him a brilliant and creative mind, but he was creative not in an artsy way, more creative in an analytical and mechanical way. He was really good at solving problems. He understood mechanics and physics, and he was able to make a career using that skill set. He worked as a machinist for years. He had his own businesses, and he was very good. In the prime of his career, prime of his life as far as occupation, he was sought out by people within his field from around the world. They knew his name, and his reputation preceded him, and people would contact him if they had a problem that they couldn't figure out. It was funny because I remember him so many times saying that he would just fall asleep, and while he was sleeping, his mind would be working on the problem, and he often woke up with an answer, a way to solve it. And I just thought that was kind of like an awesome superpower, you know? His mind just kept working and churning through options and details and potentials until it worked out a way to fix whatever the problem was. I thought that was pretty cool. My dad was quite successful in his chosen occupation. He worked with a lot of different companies, international, global companies, militaries, high-level science facilities, all for a very specific skill set, but he really did carve out a name for himself within his field. And I was always proud of him for that. I was always proud of how smart my daddy was, and how people would seek him out when they couldn't fix it themselves or couldn't figure it out themselves. It made me proud. Here's the darkest purple. It's called Dark. So my dad had several hobbies. Like I said, he was very mechanically minded, and it was a joy for him to find something that was well made and then figure out what made it so good. Was it the components or perhaps the technique in crafting that item? He would often buy a quality product that might be the treasure of someone's collection, and then he would tear it apart. And he would tear it apart so that he could see what made it so good. Why was it doing what it did? And then he would reassemble it, and oftentimes, this did not happen just once, often he would reassemble it better than it was before, because once he had disassembled it, he understood it. He could really wrap his mind around all the details and the nuances of, okay, that makes sense, and then he'd put it back together, and it might be even better than it was when he first got it. I loved his analytical mind and his drive for learning. Why does this work? Why would people choose this brand over this brand? It was something that really fed an interest in me to understand things as well and to appreciate quality and craftsmanship. He had a few other hobbies too. He enjoyed flying. In about, I don't know, middle age, I suppose, he picked up flying. I don't remember how he got into it. I think it might have been something he was always interested in doing, and finally the finances were there so that he could take some lessons, and that led into him becoming a private pilot and getting licensed, and eventually he actually for several years owned a small two-seater plane. I remember him studying. I remember him in school to become a private pilot. I remember TAFs and METARs and cloud formations and weather, and he hated studying the weather. And I remember the voices of the people in the videos that he would watch to learn about these things. And then I remember when he soloed, when he got to the point where he was educated enough to fly the plane by himself with his instructor on the ground. I was proud of him for that too, because that's a big deal. You know, that's a scary thing to do. And I vividly recall all of those months and months and months of study. It was good for me to see that as a kid, to see my father, who in my eyes was so capable and able-bodied and intelligent, to see him take on a new skill, something he didn't know anything about, and really dive into it and learn enough that he was able to competently fly an aircraft by himself and get licensed. I was proud of him for that too. Now I'll pick up that black shade and deepen again, just the outer corner. Once Daddy was licensed and had his own plane, I think he could rent planes, but once he had his own plane, he had a few flying buddies, and sometimes they would actually fly to a different state just for their favorite lunch. It was so amazing to me that you could just hop in an airplane and fly to a totally different state because you wanted the food that that state specialized in. I remember he and Mom would sometimes go on little dates where they would do that. They would jump in the airplane and fly. Mom was never as into flying as Dad was. I think it made her sick. But she was supportive of him nonetheless, and she would get in that aircraft and she'd sit in the back and support him in his interest. And that was a valuable lesson for a kid to see too, you know, supporting your partner even though it might not be your interest. I thought that was pretty big of her. About 4 months ago, I shared in a video that I was upset about something, but I was choosing to count my blessings instead. That was the day after I found out that my dad had, that he had a lump. And I was feeling a lot of feelings. And when you find out that somebody's life is threatened, because we all knew what it was, you think about things on a more serious level. It no longer is anything flippant or superficial. Things take on a heavier meaning because you are face to face with mortality, the fact that this person might not be here for much longer. And we all have that in our lives and even in personal experience. Like, I could die in a car accident tomorrow and there's no warning. But getting that kind of news was very grounding, and hey, you know, this is a serious situation now. Dad's lump was in his neck and he decided not to treat it. The doctors didn't give him a terribly good prognosis anyway. It was pretty well advanced. And by the time they finished all the testing and stuff over the course of about the next month, it had metastasized to, other places. So it was something that we all knew was coming. But that doesn't necessarily make it easier to deal with in the here and now. Knowing that a person is dying, and my family, we have, with various careers, we have a lot of experience with death and dying, and sickness, illness, long-term, short-term. I mean, my husband and I both worked in emergency services. My mom has had extensive training with death and dying and counseling. She's worked in various healthcare facilities where she has helped somebody to the end, So the concept was not foreign to us as a family, but that's different from actually living it out. And that's different from watching somebody whom you love go through it. Let's pick up this purple shimmer right here. So once Dad was diagnosed with cancer, he lived about 3 more months. I live about 1,000 miles from my parents right now, so it was kind of, in a way, it was easy to not be living right there and watching him decline daily. But it was also hard to be so far away and know that there was really nothing I could do. Like, what can I do from here? I can pray, I can support my mom, and that's about it, honestly. And I did talk to my mom a couple times, like, do you want me to come? We can figure out all the details, my husband and travel and expenses and the children. We can figure that all out, but do you want me to come? Can I bring value? And she and I both agreed, no, not really. Dad didn't want to be seen by anybody. He really wanted to just be with my mom. So we opted for me to come afterwards, after mom has had time to process and reflect, and maybe she needs help cleaning the house, and we can have, grandmother, granddaughter time, stuff like that. So that's what we decided to do. Trying this on the inner corner. It's okay. I think I'll probably dip into the white to brighten it up a bit, but let's drag this onto the lower lash line too. Some of the really important things that my father did in his lifetime. I'm not talking about his career, his occupation, his education, or his skill sets. I'm talking about his character. My dad was a really hard worker. He was. I watched my dad work hard with his hands, hard to provide for his family. He would work until his hands bled. He would stay up late. He would sleep at his shop to continue running machines. And he taught that to us. He taught us the value of working with your hands, the value of putting all you had into getting a job done, and the pride that comes out of that. In doing so, he also taught my brother a trade. He ended up going a different route, but he did give my brother a foundation, which ended up feeding into a lot of my brother's future jobs, because he had that training from Dad. And say what you will about family businesses, it was still instrumental in giving my brother a good start in life. He could get a job with a specific skill set, and that helped him be more successful, especially as a young man leaving home. My dad was also one of the first people to teach my mom adult skills. She didn't know how to balance a checkbook when she got married, and he taught her that. He was one of the people to speak life into her and to help build her confidence to become a pretty well-balanced, well-adjusted woman. It was that woman who taught me and my siblings about setting goals. She didn't know how to set goals before Dad, and he taught her. He helped boost her, give her a stronger foundation too for her own life. As a homeschooling mom, she gave that to her children. She instilled in us a very strong sense of goal setting and working towards a specific objective. And she wouldn't have been able to do that if it weren't for Dad and what he gave her. It's lovely to see the different personality traits that have carried into myself and my siblings. For me, I think that I connected most with Dad in music. He wasn't a terribly musical person, but he loved to sit and sing hymns. And he enjoyed, I remember him blasting Celine Dion for years. He really enjoyed Celine Dion. He also liked banjo music, and if I recall correctly, he cared for bagpipes as well. So, one of the things that carries on in me is music. In both of my siblings, I see great deals of intelligence. They are both so smart, and yet smart in different ways. Really, really intelligent. My brother is very much minded like my dad in terms of mechanical minded. Again, he learned the trade from my father, dipping into a white now. So he makes me think of Dad specifically in that way because they both did that skill. They both did that trade and did it well, and, were able to build careers from that skill set. I see a lot of my dad in my brother and his strengths. And in my sister, I see his intelligence as well, but taking a different turn, a different direction. My sister is extremely passionate about logic and learning and understanding. Remember I said that he really wanted to understand why things worked the way they did. My sister's like that too. She doesn't take it in the mechanical direction. She's more feelings and emotions and the way that a person's mind works. She's very analytical as far as feelings and emotions. She gets really emotionally invested in things, and it makes me think of Dad because he was just so dive all into something, and my sister's like that too. I put some white in my waterline. Now I'm just putting a little bit of concealer on my face, and I'll use my 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 CoverGirl face powder to top it off a bit. Dad did not want to be buried. He wanted to be cremated. My sister and my husband are both in school, but they're on different schedules. One's in a semester and one is in a term. So we have to try to find a time when a break overlaps both of their schedules, and that's going to be the holidays. The tentative plan is to do a memorial service for my dad in the very beginning of the new year. That way my husband and my sister can both make it. And then my daughters and I might send my husband home and stay with my mom for a little bit longer. Again, I think that I could be helpful to her when it comes to sorting and clearing out and cleaning and whatnot, but more than that, it'll just be nice to see her, to grieve with her, because grieving from far away is very different than it would be if I were actually there. I'm pretty sure that once Mom and I touch and hug, and my sister and brother and I touch and hug, I think then there will be a whole new wash of waterworks and emotion, because now we're grieving in person with the people who knew him best, the people who have shared a life with my father. So right now it's sad, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a whole different level of sad when we're actually there. And I want to spend time with Mom. I want my daughters to be able to have grandmother time and to make memories and to do some happy, fun stuff. Let's put on a little bit of blush. This is my Tarte palette. There's a purpley one in here called Luxe, so I'll do that. Mom overall is doing pretty good. Right away, she's been working on cleaning out the house, you know, tidying, deep cleaning, decluttering, etc. Then her several-month plan, like several months out from his death, is to start sorting his things, his clothes, his tools, remnants of his hobbies. And then after a year at least, possibly 2, that's when she plans on, sorry, I pulled out a highlighter, Frosé from BH Cosmetics. That's when she plans on taking some stock of her life and deciding, do I want to stay in this job? Do I want to take early retirement? Do I want to start a new career or start a business? What would I like to do now, after enough time has passed that you can reasonably make bigger decisions without them being clouded by emotion? I added some mascara and this lip liner in the shade Dusty Rose, and that is the whole look. That's everything. I'd love to know what you think, of course. I hope that this video has been for you just a little glimpse into the man that my father was. My mom posted his obituary, and again, my parents are very private. She didn't want to share any details or anything other than basic. Couple of names, couple of dates, this was his career, and that's it. And I understand that, and I want to respect their preferences, but it felt to me so empty. Actually, reading his obituary has made me more depressed because it's just a few lines giving location and a few names, but there's no soul in it. And I really needed to share with somebody just a little bit of the man that he was, the life that he lived, his passions, his interests, his gifts, his skills. I needed to pay tribute to him in that way. So I ended up writing my own little obituary for Dad, which I plan on sharing with the family, but I wanted to read to you guys just my closing paragraph, and I hope that this video has honored my dad and his preferences for privacy and slight anonymity, but also honor my dad and the legacy that he leaves behind in his children and his grandchildren and those who knew and loved him best. So this is the last paragraph of my little tribute to Dad, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Thank you for being here. My father's legacy is one of hard work, entrepreneurship, intelligence, and appreciation for quality and craftsmanship. He lived his life in a way which reminds me to cherish those I love, make time and space for relationships, and lean into Christ for sustenance and strength in the journey of life. For better and worse, this is the man whom I called Dad. He left an indelible mark on my life and will always have a special and permanent place in my heart.